Wait, what's the safety bit?
Perfects some mortal magic attacks with death effects, but that was a damage effect.
Shit.
So
Is
maybe,
it just that we don't have enough hit points?
Maybe it is just an HP check.
Unless we can kill him more quickly.
I think it's his death trigger though. I think he death triggers into Ultima. Let me look.
Okay. You dig it up. The Queen album cover, Queen 2. Comes with fucking Pink Floyd shit. Who's next? Peeing on the brick wall.
Peeing on a brick
fucking
wall?
Blondie, yeah.
Gross.
Fucking Sgt. Pepper. Straight Outta Compton.
No idea.
Dark Side of the fucking Moon.
I don't even want to ask questions because I'm just going to sound like a fucking idiot to everyone else who's like all about.
Oh, it's a Pink Floyd album.
No, I mean that's not the thing. I'm asking. I was thinking of asking, is that the Prism one? Nope.
Oh wait, no, sorry, it moved. It is the Prism one.
Oh, it is the Prism one. Okay,
yeah, it's this one.
Yeah, I was right.
Sorry, it moved. Yeah,
I was right about something in my life.
London Calling.
No idea.
The Clash.
So today our strategy for this fucking idiot is we're going to drain all of his MP away by rasping him.
Gotcha.
That's the plan.
Like the other thing I gotta say is like punk delivered a lot of its like image through album covers. You know what I mean? Like pre-video, like the fucking Ramones album covers where they have like the Ramones aesthetic. It's just a deliberate like.
It wasn't from like the fashion culture of the band themselves extending to their fans.
What do you mean?
Via live shows.
I mean, maybe, but that would have been hyper local. You know, like. The first 2 or 3 album covers, actually the first 4, all have them in like their iconic, getup. I feel like dissemination of the record with its album art was way faster than their live shows.
Do you think punk is pirated more than other genres?
In the contemporary environment?
No, I mean like in its original native environment. Like when the Ramones and stuff were out. Because like I was thinking about the Stranger Things scenes with the older brother who had like the mixtapes and rips and stuff.
Oh yeah, good point.
You know what I mean?
I think the thing is like, where would you have ripped them from?
That's true. Maybe radio? I don't even know.
Yeah, see with some
you
of that
could tape
stuff,
record radio.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Like a band like the Ramones were like famously did not get a lot of radio play. Like that was kind of like a sore point with them for like throughout their entire history. So, like, I don't know how you'd get those records, honestly.
Because it makes me wonder, like...
I know, like, for metal and stuff, like, in the 80s, and in the 90s, like, tape trading is a huge thing. You know what I mean? Like, people would, like, publish lists and mail them to each other. I really almost see, like, certain, like, torrent sites as just kind of being, like, fundamentally extensions of that culture, where you kind of share peer-to-peer to a degree.
Yeah. Is punk still alive? Or is punk a dead genre?
Well, that's like a big question you
Yeah.
opened up.
Yeah. Well, you're the expert. I want to know.
I mean...
Because I feel like when we talk about punk, it's all about these bands from 30 years ago. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, Crass, like, already had a song called Punk is Dead, like, a year after, like, 77. You know what I'm saying?
A year after punk started.
Yeah, well, I mean, it became commercialized almost instantly, so, like, I think the answer is both, like, yes and no. I think punk is way more an ethos than it is a genre. Like, I feel like, and punk, quote-unquote punk stylings have been, like, so thoroughly, what's the word I'm looking for, like, merged into contemporary music that it's kind of indistinguishable anymore. Like, I think as far as music goes, like, it's not really... I think it lost its cultural bite pretty quickly. And also, though, the thing is that the idea of punk as being, like, a brand new thing was just, like, erroneous from the start. Because, like, it was really just a revival of stripped-down rock and roll that had been present through the 50s and 60s since rock and roll started. You know what I mean? like, and that sort of music definitely persisted. I don't know, throughout. I don't know a lot about contemporary punk, to be honest with you. I think maybe just because I'm not interested in a lot of it, unless it's like. But I like some like modern hardcore and.
I was gonna say,
like crustcore and stuff.
What's the operative difference beyond age?
I just don't.
Because I don't know how the genres evolve. Like I'm asking.
Yeah.
Genuinely from a place of ignorance.
Oh sure. I mean, like there's like the thing is like honestly, I'm not like a fucking expert on that shit either. But like, I mean, like as soon as punk happened, like there were tons of regional scenes that developed their own sounds. You know what I mean? Like the Ramones were in New York, and there were other bands there like the Cramps and the Dictators. And even before the Ramones kind of started, there were tons of bands that were like proto-punk, like the Stooges, the Dictators, MC5 in Detroit, and stuff like that. But like regional scenes kind of developed their own sounds. Like California hardcore was really different. And like if you've heard of Black Flag, like they had some classic hardcore records, but then they started going in this like sludgy, doomy direction, which like was kind of anathema to their fans. And I don't know, like it kind of merged into post-punk was a thing, which was like, and art punk was a thing, like Patti Smith and stuff like that. Bands like Television, Joy Division, shit like that, which is like an extension of punk. You know what I mean? Like goth happened, and then like all of it kind of bleeds into like post-punk, like Husker Du, like post-hardcore stuff. And then, like, all of it kind of, I feel like, gradually kind of turned into the vast soup that was indie throughout the 80s and 90s, you know what I mean? And, I don't know.
I feel like most of what I know of indie is from, like, the early 2000s.
Yeah, no, that's also true, but yeah.
Is that, like, maybe an indie revival, you know what I mean? Because I feel like a lot of indie shit really picked up in that time, like, stuff like Death Cab almost... Like, it got labeled as indie, even though it really wasn't. It was highly commercial, but, like, you know what I mean? Like, that type of music.
Yeah.
Postal Service and shit like that.
Yeah, I almost see that being, like, some sort of, like, outgrowth of, like, late emo or something more than... Which was, like, emo itself, like, grew out of hardcore, like, and the emo... Like, the stuff that, like, was once called emo, like, bears, like, no real relation to, like, stuff that was later called emo. Like there was like actual hardcore like punk bands and emotional hardcore bands like fucking thing like Rites of Spring and Moss Icon and shit like that. Fugazi, I guess, which is like Ian McKay's band from after Minor Threat. And
I had friends in high school who listened to a lot of these bands. Like the names sound familiar, but I don't think I could name a song, or even if I heard a song, like, even if I heard their biggest song, I don't know that I would know who it was. Yeah. Like Fugazi, Minor Threat, Black Flag. Like I had a major friend group in high school that listened to all that stuff. You know what I mean?
Totally. And like, yeah, I don't know.
So a lot of my exposure to that is by proxy.
Honestly, like I'm not really sure how to chart exactly like where my interest like stops, because like I have a similar kind of. Like, I don't really know how to describe it. It's like similar barrier, or like it's not like even like self-imposed. It's just like I tend not to like newer stuff as often as I do older things. With movies too. Like I like contemporary
I've noticed that about you. I guess I am just, you know, because I'm interested in you. I'm curious about, you know, why that is. You know what I mean? Like, what about age specifically? Oh shit.
Well, that's a very good question.
I mean, and maybe you don't know the answer, and I'm not saying that you should, but it's curious to me, because I sort of come from the other side of the fence, where I tend to appreciate more modern things more often than I do older things, and I don't really know why.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think...
And that's just, speaking in generality.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And, like, I was just going to say, like, I think if you looked at my taste broadly, like, I have a pretty, especially with music, a pretty... temporally diverse interest, you know what I mean? Like, for instance, like the last list that I put together that was like my recent listenings was a lot of contemporary pop music, a lot of contemporary electronic stuff that was interesting to me. 70s and 80s, like Berlin School, progressive electronics, mixed with vaporwave, which is contemporary, roughly contemporary. Like it's all over the place, and I'm interested in horror in the same way. But I think whereas the means of producing music have changed with the internet, they also have not changed quite as radically as I feel like the means of producing films has changed over time. Or at least the way, especially that low-budget film was created. I don't know.
That's curious to me.
It is, but I think it's true. Like, I mean, like, if you look at cheap films now, they'll probably be shot digital as opposed to 80s shot on video, which has its own charms, or on, like, pre-video, you would have to have shot on film. Like, there wasn't another option.
Yeah. Okay.
Like,
I can see what you're saying.
It almost sounds like I'm just thinking out loud. I have not really thought through any of this to the point where I feel like really, strong about it. But I feel like while there were monetary barriers that are probably unfortunate, there was you had to have a certain level of dedication and capital in order to produce a film at a certain point. Yeah. So there's limited amounts of films that are being produced. I don't know, and if you think, this is just another side example. If you think, I'm really into Italian horror.
You're into Italian stuff. I mean, really and truly, you're into Italian disco music? Mm-hmm. And Italian...
that's true.
Electronic music in general. And,
it's very true.
Italian horror cinema, and
Prague.
There's something about Italian media in general, I'd say, that piques your interest, and that also has always been something, just a curious point to me. Like, what is it about that, that really captures your imagination?
Yeah, I don't. That's really hard to put into words, but I feel like, I feel like there's continuity between all the different things that you just mentioned, because if you think about, I just watched Tenebrae and Phenomena, which are Argento movies. The soundtracks were done by Goblin and Claudio Simetti from Goblin, and they're prog rock soundtracks that are disco and mixed with heavy metal. But and I'm not enough of an expert to be able to say this with any level of certainty. But there are definite changes in the culture and way that people accessed movies that directly resulted or reflected what was available. Mm-hmm. If you think about movies being produced in film, 42nd Street, Grindhouse theaters, you know what I mean? They're made for a particular audience and a particular method of distribution. Mm-hmm. Whereas now things would probably be released online. Shot on video is the same way. Instead of being released in theaters, though, it'd probably be released direct to video in most cases, and sold in retail, in rental shops. You know what I mean? So those things tied together. Italian horror also had this genre boom, throughout from the 60s through to probably the 80s. But I don't know exactly why, but funding for the entire film industry kind of tanked around that time. Which is why a lot of those directors didn't produce stuff after the late 80s, because it, Argento and stuff, they went into TV, because it just wasn't, I don't know why, but it was the way that the industry was.
That's interesting, though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it has to do with cost or what exactly caused it. I know people have written about it. I just don't know more than that. But, so, some of it just has to do with the particular way that things were at a particular time that appeals to me. I mean, as a microcosmic example, it's the same way that 70s and 80s book art appeals to me way more. Take Stephen King. Stephen King art on original printings, you know what I mean, is way more appealing to me than the new Stephen King art on the reprints, which is kind of shoddy 3D digital art.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the best metaphor I can give for the difference. You know what I mean?
it almost, this is totally fucking tangential and probably not even correct.
No.
It reminds me of the way magic art has evolved.
Yeah, for real.
Like, old magic cards were these bizarre paintings from a real panoply of artists that had styles all over the map.
Yeah.
But there's also something unifying, and, you can recognize old magic art when you see it.
Yeah.
Shit. And then in sort of the middle era of magic art, there was a lot of just like sort of boring computer drawn, just sort of low quality art. You can look at like, I don't know, there's some art from like Kamigawa block, and there's some art from like Lorwyn block that's just so, I don't know, boring. Like it's just very clearly the thing is what it is, and there's no real depth to the portrait.
Sure.
And then now I feel like magic art is at one of the highest highs it's ever been. And part of that is just because they've let the artists just do wild stuff, like really cool, interesting techniques. And I also think they've cultivated a sort of stable of artists that are more competent, more technically proficient, and more able to really represent something in a way that, belies true artistry rather than just the ability to, present an accurate image. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I also think, like, it's just been in a sense towards, like, the quality that you see in general fantasy and science fiction art over time. Mm-hmm. Like, and honestly, I don't mean, like, to disparage that at all. It's just my personal taste, I think, runs toward, like, I love the early magic art way more. And I feel the exact same way about, like, D&D art modules and everything. There's something that appeals to me about the flawed nature of the earlier art. And I think that's a way, or another reason why older film, especially low-budget film, is so fascinating and important to me. It's its flaws.
And I think part of my curiosity around your specific philosophy around that is why I send you images of current magic art that are of subjects that I think you'd find interesting or horrifying or whatever.
Right.
Because I feel like, I want to see, I
don't think they're all
I'm just curious to interrogate you on that. And not in like a, mean way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
I'm just curious because you're an interesting person at the end of the day.
Well, thanks.
I think, everyone who watches this would agree.
Well,
that Claire is interesting, and that's why I ask you these questions.
Oh, I appreciate it. I mean, like, to kind of circle back, when I wrote that review of Last Slumber Party, really, it felt like it was important to me because, like, I have been kind of slowly building over time, like, asking myself, like, why is it this particular genre? Mm-hmm. What is it about this particular concern that
this fight is the worst?
It is. No.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. But, like, what is it about this particular context that fascinates me? Like, why is it that's important to me? Like, why do I keep coming back to this particular genre? And I think that's definitely still a question I'm still answering, but partially because I think may have talked about this before, but one of the things that I absolutely love about slasher movies in particular is the way that they have this slackness to them, where there is always, like, just space in the movie where nothing happens, and it's just, like, I call them hangout moments, with, like, the kind of archetypal example being the moment in Friday the 13th, where they all just, like, are hanging out in one of the cabins playing strip poker.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't really contribute anything to the movie's momentum, except it might create a little bit of tension as they start to leave, but that moment is completely separate. So when I think about that, it's like, why do I like seeing the characters just hang out? But I'm not as intrigued to see it in, say, like a romantic comedy or a John Hughes film. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it has to do with...
Especially in John Hughes, because it's kind of like a lot of
it's kind of what they do.
Movie is, yeah.
But I realize that something about it, it's those moments taking place in the particular context where there's that threat underlying everything. Mm-hmm. Like, so...
Maybe that's also why you were so interested at the time, and presumably still now, in Stranger Things. Because it has a lot of that also same thing. Hangout moments in the context of a greater threat.
Exactly, and exactly, and that's like probably my favorite aspect of of Stranger Things.
Maybe we've keyed onto something there.
Yeah. No, I mean,
sort of heuristic.
I actually included it in that review. Like I said, I felt like that review was very important for me. Because I kind of long had this idea that because slashers were really important to me as I started early transition, and that seems like a really weird thing to say, but I think it's because I've always subconsciously and then more consciously viewed them as these fantasies of, in like a dream space, these fantasies of resistance against broader cultural forces. Like if I think of original Halloween, what the character, the killer is Michael Myers, but in the original film is billed as the Shape.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of consider it the archetypal phantom character that is then seen in like 1,000 incarnations and all of the different variations on the slasher that take place, from late 70s through into the 90s. Mm-hmm. And they're all kind of like faces or facets of the same thing. But I always kind of think of them as being this dual force, like this intrusion from outside and also this projection from inside. Mm-hmm. Whether that in Halloween that's like, fear of growing up, like in Jungian terms, like the animus, like the shadow, opposite, being threatening. Like there's this whole romantic quality in Halloween where the Shape can't kill Laurie and Laurie can't escape the Shape, like they're bound together somehow, like it's part of her.
I didn't really think about that.
There's this production still that has obsessed me. That's the Shape hugging Jamie Lee Curtis, like in black and white, and it's like it blows my fucking mind. The whole animus idea is not mine. Like I read that somewhere, but it's since been kind of important to me. But I've also always thought about that phantom creature being intrusion, because women are often the victims, almost always the victims. The final girl is a trope. Like I've always conceptualized it as the phantom being this abstract incarnation. If you consider the slasher movie like fundamentally a dream space and not like a reality, it's where like aspects of the mind and abstract concepts can take shape in something that resembles reality. So like the Shape is like, to me, it's honestly, it's like patriarchy, it's like capitalism, it's like oppressive forces that are keeping you bound up. Like it's tied in many ways to like kind of the oppressive, repressive life in suburbia. You know what I mean? And it's also simultaneously, I feel like, a projection outward from the women, like Laurie Strode, because in that. We have it such that women have internalized those things, and so it's those values that say I'm not blah blah blah, I'm not good enough. Here's what I have to do. You know what I mean? Like this threat. If that makes any sense.
I think it does.
And then there's a famous book, and there's been more.
Is there more in that bottle?
No.
Shit.
Sorry. There's a famous book, and there's been way more written on this since, but there's a book called Men, Women, and Chainsaws by Carol Clover in the 90s. That was like
a great title.
It is. It's a feminist analysis of slasher movies, rape revenge movies, and I think like possession movies, something like that. But it looks at this whole trope, and part of it is this idea in regressive 90s second wave feminist terms of like quote unquote gender bending, which is not like a term I'm very... but where the final girl is often like vaguely masculine, and like the phantom killer character is often feminized in a lot of ways, and they kind of are combined and in orbit with one another, and the way that the final girl kind of masculinizes in order to defeat the creature, usually like with phallic armament, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. And that's kind of like really like over the top Freudian, but the idea has always stuck with me that it was a space where gender was ambiguous. And she also talks about how the audience, slasher movies in particular, were a place where the audience could experience like cross-gender identification, because up to a certain point, Roger Ebert and Siskel famously attacked slasher movies for saying that they encourage the sadism because the audience is going to root for the killer. And while that may be true, like up through a certain point of the movie, like that's part of the. But at the end, the audience is always rooting for the woman at the end.
Always root for the underdog at the end.
Right.
Yeah.
But the point she's making is that it's a space where an audience of largely men comes to identify with a female character. And so, like, that kind of weird, like, at least I can just conceive of it at least as kind of this liminal space where gender was more porous. And so when I was coming to investigate, like, my own gender, that became really important. And also, if you connect that to kind of a fantasy of resistance against the forces that have kept you in those barriers in the first place, which is very acute for me, it became really relevant for me. And then part of the other thing is that over time, the idea of having ideas as fragments has been really important to me. Instead of trying to totalize something into like one coherent whole.
Well, that seems healthy for you, especially.
No, yeah, thank you for saying that, because that means you see what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, like I have this tendency to black and whiteness that comes from OCD, I think in particular.
Well, especially like comprehensiveness to you
has to be totalized.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why I've been so attracted to the slasher, because I see it fundamentally as a body of work that exists in 100 different variations, fundamentally on the same thing, but taking on different flavors or something like that, slightly different themes, variations, and endings. And tracing those variations is part of what appeals to me about. But the formula of a genre fundamentally unfolding in the same way every time also kind of comforts the part of me that is fascinated by repetition and ritual, while also being able to trace deviation. So like it appeals to me on like a psychic level, and also like on a gender level, like on tons of different levels. And that particular slasher cycle only existed in, I would say, like 78 through the late 80s, like in its like original form, like golden era. Wow, I talked a lot. I'm sorry.
I'm just curious now, because you told me before that you don't like Cabin in the Woods. Why do you think that is, knowing what we just talked about? Knowing that, you know, the genre has this, you know, like you say, liminality of gender. And Cabin in the Woods is specifically a film that interrogates a lot of the tropes of slasher film.
I just think, honestly, if I, like, this is going to sound
I'm
like...
using interrogates a lot tonight.
That's
I
okay.
don't know what's up with that.
It's very academic of you. I like it. Let's interrogate this. Okay. It's very... You know, let's
well, now, if I can be an academic, this. I mean, now I'm going to use it all the time.
I mean, so. Yeah, like, I think your key academic words are interrogate and problematize.
Ooh.
Like, doesn't this problematize that?
Ooh,
let's problematize
that's
that
powerful.
a little bit.
I like it.
Yeah, it's really good. That's what grad school will get you. You basically attended grad school just now. You got it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, you're done.
Where's my master's? Honorary master's?
You can have mine. I don't want to.
Hit me up.
This is gonna make me sound like just like a fucking cretin, but like honestly, I think I'm just not into Joss Whedon's like the way that it was like. It felt like really smirky and really knowing in a way that was contrary to the kind of earnestness that appealed to me in the first place. I also just thought like the fucking tropes of the characters were just like way off and like just not accurate. Like it felt more like an inherited stereotype of the genre than an actual than what somebody who had loved a lot of those movies would have created to me.
Have you seen The Descent?
Yeah, The Descent I like.
So you like that movie?
Yeah, The Descent is actually probably one of the
because I think it does a lot of the same things.
How so? I want to hear more about that.
Well, I mean, I feel like it has several of the same character stereotypes that exist in other slasher films, but except, you know, obviously limited only to a group of women, rather than, you know, having a jock guy or whatever the fuck.
Sure.
And having functionally a genderless villain rather than an obviously male villain.
True.
But at the same time, like, I felt like that movie in particular felt very post-slasher, you know what I mean? Where it was taking some of the conventions of the genre, but also innovating on it in a way. And while that's not as, you know, sort of recursive and looking back on its genre in like a ha-ha way, like the way Cabin in the Woods does, you know, maybe that's the difference then.
I think that is
it's trying to move more in that innovation.
It might be post-slasher in terms of post-golden era, but I feel like it's a good example of a contemporary slasher that is a unique is an interesting variation. Because I think stereotyped characters are very much an aspect of slashers, but I don't think that it ever really follows the schematic as closely as Cabin in the Woods wants to think it does. Like, I think it's just like I think the thing is, when I think of slashers, they exist in so much variation that there's so much more richness than is implied by what is in Cabin in the Woods' oversimplification. And the fact that it smirks so much while doing so just kind of turns me off. Like, it's kind of hard for me to articulate, but I just that part didn't appeal to me. I don't know. It felt like obnoxious to me.
Really?
Yeah. But The Descent I loved.
I'm trying to think. Now, you've also said before that you also don't like the Saw movies.
I've only seen the first one.
Okay. I thought you.
And it was okay.
Okay.
I did not like the first Saw movie. I don't think it was like.
Well, the first one is the best one.
Yeah, I was gonna say
they go downhill pretty steeply from there.
Yeah. Like
I can tell you that for sure.
I think the other thing is like.
This way.
Like I know. Like what?
Honestly, at this point, I might put this out as just a bonus video podcast while we were fighting MagiMaster. And here's the thing. I don't even know that, like, when we run him out of MP, that he's not still going to ultimate us and kill us.
Yeah, I know.
So this may be all for naught.
That's okay. I hope... Well, I feel like we've been having a nice conversation. And
that's the thing, is that I think the content here is good. It's just the video is terrible. So
no, that's totally cool.
Anyway.
Yeah.
You should... If you had any interest, I would be interested in hearing your perspective on the Saw series just as a whole. Because I think they're almost like a deconstructed slasher.
Sure.
Where the villain is almost just completely absent.
Okay, interesting.
The villain is on the sidelines. The villain has set these engines in motion that kill people.
Okay.
And it's up to the people to determine how they can get out of it. Much like in any other slasher, but... You know, in Saw, it's much more obvious. Like, this is a puzzle. It is solvable. And, you know, it's up to you as the victim whether you're going to react in a way that is intelligent and thoughtful and helps you escape, or if you're going to react in a way that is base and human inherently, and you're going to die.
I'm thinking of something, and just if you don't mind me elaborating on something in terms of like trying to trace like why it appeals to me. And watching Last Slumber Party really got me thinking about it. And Murder Drone, I know you haven't seen any of those films, but the Murder Drone movies are like complete distillations. Like my friend Ep67 called it like essentially if like you took the like say the master tapes for a slasher, like they accidentally got drenched in water and then you let them like sun dry, like, and then played the film, like that's kind of what would happen to the slasher. Like there's just these weird distillations and like a slackness in the suspense was key. Like in a normal slasher movie, like the whole point is to build suspense. You know, there's chases. Will they get them? When will they? In Murder Drone, that is completely not the point. It's completely distilled down to moments of stalk and kill, but it's not real. The suspense is gone. Like it's just about the droning repetition of moment on moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the impression I got. Now, obviously, I still haven't watched any, but that's, you know, a real clear crystallization of your explanation of the genre to me, is that it's just like those murder moments, stalking moments, just like, you know, back to back. You know, there's not as much of the
other
exposition or like, you know, justification, especially.
Right, there's no
like
plot.
Killing the slut or, you know, whatever.
Right, like that is completely absent.
Yeah.
And like I almost feel like Murder Drone is like the slasher distilled to its like purest elements. That is also say that part of the reason I like, because when you're talking about Saw, and I'm not saying this is a wrong approach at all, I'm just saying you're talking about elements of plot, like how the characters are interacting with things, and I realize that all of those things I just don't care about as much. Like at least in terms of what appeals to me. Like the killing aspects, whether they escape the killer or not, blah blah blah, doesn't appeal to me as much as just the weird way that it's put together. And the reason I love Last Slumber Party so much is that because it's 99% hangouts and like people just dicking around and wandering around, and then when it finally comes down to the killer chasing the final girl, like, the actress said, I read in one review where somebody watched it live with her, she said her initial reaction to seeing her friend dead was like she dropped a penny. Like, like it was just like, she was just like, and then just kind of like walked away. And it's like, time fucking dilates. The soundtrack is just this droning homemade synth. Like, and that aspect of it, I have no idea how to contextualize that except that it's hypnotic and narcotic and like lulls you out of yourself. But that is way more appealing to me than the mechanics of plot. And I think part of the reason is because I'm viewing lo-fi cinema primarily as like cinema of affect, like the way that it just affects you on like a body level or a pre-emotional level than I am like interested in, you know, plot or character.
Maybe that's... I'm trying to draw connections here.
Yeah.
Cross media here.
Sure.
Maybe that's why I keep going back to Diablo 3.
Sure.
Because it's obviously not plot-based. There's no plot left anymore.
Right, exactly.
I've been through it 1,000 times. I know exactly what happens. I don't even bother with the story mode anymore. It's now just about adventures and bounties and shit. But it's more about, you know... And it's not even an emotional word. It's not even like, I'll play it for a couple hours, make my character better, and feel happy or feel rewarded.
Right.
It's more just like the sort of, you know, pre-human fucking, you know, dopamine reward of just, you know, the number incrementing 1 and doing slightly more damage and blowing things up a little bit more fast and watching the limbs fly and occasionally... You know, the way the physics engine glitches to where it launches a body straight at the camera.
Right, exactly.
Which is really rare, but it happens. And, like, you know...
Exactly.
Just shit like that, you know what I mean? Like, maybe that's why I go back to that well. Because just that sort of reward system is kind of similar to what you're talking about.
Yeah, I would consider...
maybe on a less intellectual level, but...
Yeah, no, I totally get where you're coming from. And, like... I guess I'm overemphasizing my disinterest in character and plot because obviously that's part of it.
Well, that's the thing is that if it didn't have at least some character and plot, I wonder that it would be even bearable. You know what I mean?
Sure. I mean, there's the other thing.
Because then there's Hostile.
Which is just what?
Just fucking murder.
Yeah, see, that's the thing is like...
with so little plot to justify it, it's almost negligible.
I mean, so two things. Like, one... The violence aspect just completely disinterests me, and 2, I would be interested in that if it substituted just like a bunch of people like hanging out for no reason while the then the killing happens. Because I love that.
I wonder what the most pure representation of that is in film.
Of what I'm talking about?
Yeah, of people just hanging out.
Honestly, Honestly, I feel like Sleepaway Camp is a really good example, despite being infamously transphobic. I don't know if you've seen that film.
I have not.
Oh yeah, don't spoil it for yourself. We should watch it sometime. I really love that movie, even though, like, it has a really shitty trans representation.
Wow.
But you know, it's the fucking 80s, and Friday the 13th is a good example too. I think. Like, and the thing is, I like the characters, and I want to know more about them. Like, and it's almost always the case where it's like, the scripts are kind of so bad that the characters are not interesting in and of themselves. But this is like maybe a pretentious coinage, but for especially low budget films, I like to call it accidental verite. Like if you're familiar with cinema verite, which attempts to be like realistic semi-documentary type filmmaking. Like it happens by accident in my estimation for low budget films because normally the suspension of disbelief when you're watching like quote unquote a good film is there, so you accept it as like this, you know, you're pulled in. Whereas in a lot of these other films, you're pushed out back in. Like you're very conscious of the disconnect between you and the film, based on the production values. But at the same time, the droning elements, especially the Last Slumber Party, lull you out of yourself. Like so, it's like this double motion, and that's kind of what was fascinating to me about it. But the fact that So it becomes less about the script, for instance, with a particular character and how it has written a character, than literally just seeing that particular actress be a real person in a film. That is fascinating to me.
Okay.
And so, like, I can't not love them very often just because I know they're real people doing real things. And it's so outside the system of celebrity. I don't know, like, that aspect, especially for low-budget films, is a huge aspect of the appeal for me. The fact that it's real people. And that it also, like, it feels there's a lot more connective tissue to you. I'm always kind of left with, at the end of the movie, like, what are you supposed to do with it after you've watched it? Because even if you've seen this, like, fantasy of escape or resistance, you're really left back at the same point at the beginning, as you were at the beginning. But I think it's just, again, it's just a kind of magical effect, I guess, where it's kind of this, the hangout moments are key because they're kind of these visions of being in the face of, like, death and oppression and all these kind of forces that are primordial on one level and huge, the threat of death, but are also just, like, the, you know, like, loneliness of being alone in a house at night, or the loneliness of watching a movie by yourself, or something like that. All kind of connect and amplify. And I'm not sure if this is making much sense, but it's still something, like I said, that I'm really trying to articulate, but it's kind of complicated why I like them.
Yeah, I mean, it's complex and it's a little bit loose. I mean... And
it is loose, yeah.
That's just the nature of it. I don't know. There's a way to tighten it and make it more...
I think if I tightened it too much more, it would lose its...
Yeah.
Like, part of it relies on that fluidity in order to make sense. And obviously it depends on the film. You know what I mean? So any totalizing theory of the genre just would necessarily...
Now, do you think that this is, like, an effect or a characteristic, perhaps, exclusive to film as a media genre?
No, I don't think so. I think it's also true of a lot of music for me as well. I think part of the reason I love music so much is especially due to the immediacy between artist and...
Maybe that's also why some of the games that you're attracted to tend to be more single author type work. Like, you really loved Undertale.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
I think that's very true.
That's also why I really wish you would play Journey, because I think it has a lot of what you're talking about.
No, I think it would too.
You should also at some point come over and play Everyone's Gone to the Rapture, I think.
Yes.
Because it has a very similar... I don't know, there's a lot of... The game is entirely focused around capturing moments between people, and there's... The way that it's presented is entirely through voice acting, and it feels so real and raw in many ways, the voice acting in that game. Like,
yeah, for sure.
You feel transported to that moment without really seeing the players at play, just hearing it and the power of that acting, and of the authorship of being able to present that in a way that feels so real. I don't know.
No, totally. I mean, I think what you're saying is exactly right. I mean, there's obviously, like, tons of exceptions to this, because there are tons of, like, you know, blockbusters, and obviously I love Overwatch, and there's AAA titles that I've loved, and you know what I'm saying? Like,
you don't have to have a singular taste of media.
Right.
I'm just, I'm curious about this particular taste of media.
Yeah, totally. I think that's, like, all the things I've been describing is, like, slashers, and kind of extends out to horror in general, though I feel like it gets heavily modulated depending on the genre and time period. And I think I just find less of what's interesting to me in newer films. Or, not that I'm averse to watching them, I think, like, especially, I've just been, every time I have attempted to branch out, I find less that appeals to me than I do if I'm looking...
Do you know
backwards.
Do you know the film that has Brad Pitt, and it's like, is it the Book of Life or the Tree of Life or something like that?
Oh.
It's like heavily artsy.
Yeah.
We watched it, but I don't think you were there.
I think I know. Is that Terrence Malick?
Name doesn't ring a bell. Again, you pay much more attention to directorial and just authorial credits than I do.
Yeah.
unfortunately, because I can't really speak on it.
I might be a tourist and not know it.
Let me see. I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah.
Just because I wonder, do you know the movie I'm talking about?
I've heard of that title, but I don't know anything about it.
Okay. I just wonder if it might be something you would ever be interested in.
Yeah, totally. Like, I think overall I've just really realized that I'm into genre. Mm-hmm. I like variations on, and repetition on themes, which is also why I love Ozu so much.
Right.
Because all of his films are essentially the same movie.
Yeah, The Tree of Life.
Malick?
Let's see. Yep, Terrence Malick.
Yeah. No, I have not seen that. I've actually never seen a Terrence Malick film, and that's like a huge gap. I really want to see. There's one called Badlands.
Batman's?
Badlands.
Oh.
Sorry. Batman's.
Fuck me.
No, totally.
No, I think...
Well, I talk myself a lot, sorry.
I think The Tree of Life was one that, because, you know, in a way, your and I film tastes are different.
Yeah.
It didn't... I mean, I ended up not being very interested in it at all. Okay. But at the same time, based on what you're describing, it sounds like something you might be interested in. Sure. The only thing is it is a commitment and it is a little bit sleepy. So, it's 2 hours and 20 minutes.
I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but like, I don't know, just like a really simple term, a really simple way of saying, summing up everything that I just said is that I'm really interested in boring movies.
Well, this might be right up your alley.
Like, one of my favorite movies is The Oasis of the Zombies.
Oasis of the Zombies.
Which
that
is
doesn't
like
sound like a boring movie.
It doesn't, but it is. It's like a sun-damaged, like, Jess Franco zombie movie. So I also love Jess Franco, like, a lot. But shit like that. Like, Murder Drone is, like, totally... Like, I think half the point of Murder Drone is that it's, like, it's so boring and slack that you're lulled into this... You're lulled into sleep, essentially. Like, it's a hypnotic, narcotic kind of film.
What does that say about us that we could be hypnotized and narcotized by murder?
Sure. Well, I mean, that's part of the thing is the way that it's the context of how it is treated, I think, as kind of fundamentally mundane in that world.
So strange.
It is. I don't know.
I have to pee, like, so bad.
Yeah, this fight has gone on for many
Well, here's
minutes.
the thing, is that we're just trying to like exhaust his MP.
Yeah.
I can give us a status update here on the next turn.
Do it. Thanks for letting me talk about movies.
Well, it's not allowing it. I'm interested in it. That's the thing.
I appreciate that a lot.
And I'm not the only one. Other people have expressed interest in the things you have to say about movies. And that's why, while we're doing something so intensely fucking boring on the screen, we might as well talk about something interesting.
Totally. If you don't mind, in one of these episodes, if I can link my review for Last Slumber Party if people want to read it.
It seems like the perfect time to do it.
I mean...
Because honestly, at this point, this is probably going to be one big episode of nothing but this.
Yeah. The other thing to mention, though, is that...
5577 MP left.
I have increasingly devolved into this kind of, like, weird NetSpeak...
Like, you have.
Like...
Hardcore.
I mean, and I'm kind of, like, 100% okay with it, but, like, kind of just has gained its own momentum. I used to just use it... in my reviews, sort of, or just like be freer with punctuation and spelling because I just don't care. But I also just like it as stylistic elements. But like, so that's just something to be aware of. Is that I'm not really sure.
How I see. You're sort of getting like a content warning.
It's kind of a little bit of a hedge, yeah, in terms of why it's written in all lowercase and why it was weird punctuation and stuff.
I wonder if it's elements of contrarianism or rebellion to the way that you were forced to write for so many years in school.
I mean, I think totally, yeah. I think it's also just like, it's simultaneously an embrace of like NetSpeak abbreviations, like kind of like moving past prescriptivism, and also just liking being a lot more free with form.
Yeah. Just
for the fucking no reason. Just because I fucking can. And it fits for me. Half my reviews are written in like, you know, I would say some sort of standard, I don't know, prose format.
Normie dialect.
Normie dialect, sure. I did see a recent movie. I saw Don't Breathe
Isn't that one rapey?
Yeah.
I heard it was rapey.
I hated it.
Wow.
Yeah, I fucking hated it. No, it was terrible. It was suspenseful, sure, I guess, but like the whole premise, like that's the other thing, is like the whole fucking premise is the year of our Lord 2016, and it's these thieves who invade a blind man's house, and of course, like disability is monstrous, and of course the blind man is also like a rapist, and like it's just gross and like deliberately shocking, and I don't know, I just hated everything about it.
I mean, I had no interest up front in seeing it just because the concept didn't seem interesting to me.
When
it just seemed like
I heard about it, I was just like, what? At a certain point, especially, I was just like, fuck this movie. Like,
and you didn't walk out.
Oh no, I watched the whole thing, of course. No, I'm not gonna walk out. But
is there a movie that you would walk out of? Can you conceive of one? I'm not even asking if it's a literal film.
I think there was a movie that Christy and I walked out on, and it was like, fuck, it was like a really bad rom-com.
I have never walked out of a movie. Even I've talked about how bad my fucking Deadpool experience was in the theater. I didn't walk out of that movie.
To be fair, this one was free because I was working at the theater at the time, so we were not losing money by doing it.
That's always the problem, right? Is that you have to like weigh that equity of like, I've invested this. There's a chance I'll get it back if I complain hard enough.
Right. I would never do that. Yeah. I would if I walked out even for a film that I paid for, I wouldn't go and try and get my money back. At that point, it'd be my choice.
Although I would say I don't think I'd ever walk out for the quality of the film and ask for a refund. But if my experience is so bad because of the other people, I would ask for a refund. And I probably should have done it for Deadpool.
We did it once when we went to see the Lego movie because the volume in the theater was so low that like we couldn't hear it. Like I thought we were like going like nuts because like we couldn't hear the dialogue or music. It was like you had a TV turned to like low volume and like your living room was like, what is going on? So we did ask for a refund there, but
that's a technical problem.
Yeah, even then
you deserve a refund for that because you paid for a film experience at full volume.
I just thought it was weird that nobody else really seemed to care, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just going deaf. But anyway, I don't know. Fuck, don't breathe. Then again, my friend Nathaxon, who is one of my favorite writers on the entire universe, we are Murder Drone compatriots. Mm-hmm. Loved it. So,
under what reason?
I'd have to read his review again.
Oh, okay.
He has a very. I feel like we're like very often in sync in terms of what appeals to us about movies, and like I don't know. I really love Nathaxon and just appreciate him. For
makes me wonder why your opinions would be so wildly different.
I think he was just there were things about it that he took out of it that were really valuable to him, whereas for me there were certain barriers to my appreciation. Like I've always kind of approached horror in particular with the idea that it doesn't have to necessarily be a totalizing experience in order to be great. Like part of the thing is like a lot of horror movies are quote unquote bad, but they'll have some sort of image in them. They'll have some sort of moment. They'll have a location. They'll have a shock that is particularly memorable and important and potent. And like I feel like the process of like extracting those things from the films is really like key. You know what I mean? Because I don't think it would be unusual for people to sit through a long movie, but like there's one good part that they'll take and remember and it's worth it. Like part of it might just have to be, I don't know, like people into those sorts of like trash films like just might have a higher tolerance for digging.
Oh!
We did it!
Oh!
Ryan's a mummy now. He died. I embalmed him while I was talking.
Oh my God.
Fucking did it right now, though.
And
you should fucking save like immediately.
And my whole life.
Be careful. Yeah. Okay.
I was careful. Holy fucking shit, dude.
I think that was probably the dungeon we were supposed to do last.
That is,
which is why it's
correct according to my
hard.
reading of some guides here. So this is what you usually do right before you finish the game. But, you know, we decided to do it now. So
we decided to brute force our way through it. God,
here's the fun part.
That?
Here's the fun part is that we now have to go
downstairs. We've been recording for almost 2 hours.
And like 90% of that was the fucking that guy fight.
I have to pee so bad. Oh my god.
Is that even like going on? Do you just want to make like one hyper long episode?
It might be
fight the Maxi
one
Wars?
super long bonus episode. Oh my god.
You should just release it as a normal episode. Honestly.
Piss everyone off.
I mean, I don't think they'd be pissed off.